Do you think Bama will get in the playoff?
I do not. And the reason that I do not believe that that will happen is because either Georgia beats LSU or they take LSU to a nail biter. I believe both of them, I'm assuming, and again, Paul will know this better than me, I'm assuming they both run the table, win the rest of their games during the regular season, and they meet for the SEC title. And it will come down to a confrontation between Georgia and LSU. I believe Ohio State is going to win. I believe Clemson is going to win. They'll remain where they are, and they'll be there. In the case of LSU and Georgia, LSU already beat Alabama. In the case of Georgia, I don't think Georgia can afford to lose to LSU because they'd have 2 losses. But if they were to beat LSU, then LSU has a victory over Alabama. Georgia has a victory over LSU. Both of them stay where they are, and they're in the top 4 spots. That's how I see this coming. The only way Alabama can get in is if Georgia loses and in convincing fashion to LSU.
Well, but LSU will be favored. It's a loss, let's say, by a touchdown in the SEC championship game, their second loss, compared to a 5-point loss on the road, at home for Alabama to LSU. Would indicate Alabama will go instead of Georgia. Actually, from the scenario you paint, Stephen A., Paul, you tell me if I'm right or wrong.
Yeah, I think
it seems more likely that LSU beats Georgia, let's say, by a touchdown or more.
No.
Yeah, first of all,
I just meant Georgia beating LSU.
Yeah.
That's why it was
Well, Georgia beats LSU, all bets are off.
Sure.
yeah, I agree, Stephen A. I mean, LSU, assuming it gets to Atlanta undefeated and it plays at Ole Miss this weekend in Texas A&M and Arkansas, they'll probably get there. They could probably lose that game. But I'm not sure about Georgia. I'm troubled by Georgia's loss, Stephen A. And I know this committee typically rewarded wins and losses last night, but I'm baffled by everything they do, but that one in particular. Think about this for a second. Georgia lost at home to South Carolina. South Carolina, let's get deep in the weeds here, remaining games are at Texas A&M and home to Clemson. They're going to lose both and go 4-8. Georgia will have a loss to a 4-8 team, and Alabama will have a home loss by 5. I don't care whether it was 20 or 400 at halftime. They lost by 5 to the number 1
Georgia
team in the country.
A loss to a team that Alabama beat the brakes off of.
Alabama, I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah. Alabama went to South Carolina and won by 23. They gave up a touchdown in the final 20 seconds. It should have been 30. And nobody is this committee, to me, Stephen A., is not giving Alabama any credit. And all this talk about all these other teams, think about this for a second. Alabama has more current top 25 teams on its regular season schedule than Clemson, Oregon, and Utah combined, but Alabama continues to be punished because they play a bad schedule.
But that's, Paul, this is my issue with Alabama, particularly with out-of-conference scheduled games. I know what you mean. When you look at them, you just go, look, even they gave LSU a scare. It was like took everything LSU had to hold them off.
Exactly.
But on the other hand, beat somebody. You gotta beat somebody.
Let's stop for a second. And I think we're getting into a ridiculous attack here on Alabama. If Alabama played Clemson's schedule, well, they already have in a way. They've beaten Texas A&M and South Carolina. So mark those 2 games off. Are you telling me Alabama couldn't negotiate Wake Forest? They've already beaten Duke. NC State. I mean, it's absurd. Alabama would be undefeated with Clemson's schedule, but we're not even bothering because Stephen A. loves Clemson so much.
I agree with Stephen.
We're not even bothering to make anything. Oh, Clemson's in. Let them go in. They'll beat some nobody in the ACC game. I mean, Stephen A., what do you have to say about that?
Well, listen, here's my – well, first of all, let me be very, very clear. I keep trying to tell you this, Paul Finebaum. I know that you don't want me to engage in some sense of revisionist history when it comes to, oh, this is what Clemson did last year. But here's my point. Unlike basketball and other sports, you don't get to play everybody in football.
No.
You get to play your schedule. And, oh, by the way, sometimes these schedules, correct me if I'm wrong, because you're the expert, not me on this. I defer to you, buddy. But the bottom line is these schedules sometimes are made years in advance. So I'm looking at it from the standpoint, You're the reigning defending national champions, and you're undefeated. If somebody else wants to call themselves a champion,
I'm with
then
Stephen A.
put
on
the
that one.
champion in a position to defend their crown. That's
Right.
all I'm saying.
Paul, he's
if
just saying make
you're the
them top
NCAA, if you're the
four.
FBS,
Stephen
if they don't lose.
Stephen A., I've got something
Make 'em
for you.
top four.
I interviewed Bill Hancock the other day on our show. He's the executive director of the college football playoff. I said, Stephen A. Smith just got through saying what you just got through saying. And he said, well, I have a message for Stephen A. Smith. He's wrong. Stephen A., that is not part of the criteria, and we will quit arguing about this because I don't want to make you upset with me.
Correction. I've never said it was a part of the criteria.
Right.
I
It
told you
should
where
be.
I stand.
Well, no, it shouldn't be. You're as bad as Stephen A. now, Max.
Hold on, Paul.
I'm with him on
We
this.
can debate about this.
Listen,
Paul, we can debate about this
it doesn't
until the
matter.
cows come home. Let me tell you where you just lost. Let me tell you where you just lost the debate.
Oh, okay.
You actually came on national television and actually gave the semblance that I should give a damn what Bill Hancock said. I mean, you got to be kidding me. I mean,
You're right.
90% of the time, you don't care what he has to
No,
say.
I
Why
just
should
wanted to repeat that
Why
to you.
should I?
I just wanted to see you get riled
Okay, because
up.
I could get Mr. Hancock said I was wrong. Let me ask you a question. I'll put my record up against his with that damn college football committee, the stuff that they've done.
okay,
Don't get me
listen.
started with them.
As they say in court, I'm going to withdraw the complaint because I did like
Thank
your
you.
point there, but I just wanted to pass that along in case you weren't listening the other day.
Well, thank you. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus.